Let me show you the financial statements of a company called DRG Dry Cleaners. This is the 2022 P&L. They had revenue of $4.9 million, expenses of $9 million, a loss of $4.1 million, and that's on top of a loss in 2021 of $3.1 million and a loss in 2020 of $3.8 million. Not very good for DRG Dry Cleaning. If I can show you some of the balance sheet information, the current assets, $2.6 million. They have about $877,000 in cash. Unfortunately, they have close to $9 million in current liabilities and a significant amount of long-term debt, about $28 million on top of the short-term debt. So that gives them total liabilities of $39 million, a negative equity of $34 million, and the current ratio, working capital, debt to assets, debt to equity, all terrible ratios. You don't have to be an accountant to know this. This company, you're probably asking, how is it possible that this company is alive? Well, let me show you the staff. The owner is Sam McManus. He's the owner of DRG. When he needs money, he goes to his rich Uncle John. John is more than happy to help him out because obviously a bank's not going to lend him that money. And the reason why John is more than happy, it's because he's working directly with the Mexican cartel. He's laundering. Get it? DRG, drug, dry cleaning. Yes. You probably figured out this is not a real company. However, this is not all that dissimilar to what's going on today in the United States of America. In fact, Sam McManus is very similar to the United States of America. If we were to add 6 more zeros to all those numbers I showed you, then you'd be looking at the financial statements of the United States of America. Those are the true financial statements of the US of A. And John McManus, who's giving the money to Sam, is very similar to the Federal Reserve, who's doing the same thing to offering all that money to the United States of America. And the cartel is like the U.S. Treasury. When they're told to print, they're going to print. And that is, in fact, what's happening. Now, the United States of America has a debt accumulated of $31.7 trillion. Think about that. Why is nobody talking about that? The debt per citizen, $94,700. The debt per taxpayer is almost $250,000. How on earth are we ever going to pay that back? Why are we not talking about that? In fact, by the time I finish this sentence, our debt just increased another $1 million. Every 40 seconds, debt increases $1 million. Every hour, $90 million. Every day, $2.1 billion. Every year, $786 billion, $750 billion of additional interest on our debt. And that's assuming we have no more deficits in our budget, which we know we will. In fact, in 2023, we already have a deficit of another $1 trillion and growing. Now, on top of this, just to give you an idea of the situation, because cutting costs isn't going to be enough for the United States to get out of all of this debt. Let me give you an example. So if we were to look at the United States information and lop off the 6 zeros, so it makes it a little bit easier, the $5 million in sales, and again, this is $5 trillion, but I'm lopping off the zeros, $5 million, of which $1.5 million goes to Medicare, $1.2 million goes to Social Security, $780,000 goes to defense, and interest $538,000. So a total of $4.1 million, 83% of all of our tax money is going to legacy costs. Think about that. And what does that mean? That means that there's $811,000, or if we were to add those zeros, $811 billion remain to cover all of the day-to-day operating expenses of this country. 4.9 million, or if I add the zeros, 4.9 trillion, which is why we had such a significant loss. Now, why is nobody talking about it? Because it is so hard to get your arms around $1 trillion. It's 12 zeros. But to give you an idea what $1 trillion means, if we were to just stack up $1 trillion bills, you would have 3 football fields long, a Boeing 767 wide, and dollar bills piled up 5 feet high. That's $1 trillion. And that's a lot of money. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why we have a serious problem. And this is really the basis to this whole recession presentation that I'm giving. It starts here, and it's part of the reason why we're in a situation where a recession is coming very shortly. Now, how long can this last? Warren Buffett, in the last stockholders meeting just last week, said this: nobody knows how far you can go with a paper currency before it gets out of control, particularly if you are the world's reserve currency. So this can go on forever. Now, again, if this were a small company, they'd be out of business already. But this is a country that can print dollar bills and continue to print dollar bills, and that is what they're doing. And so this could go on for months, years, even decades. But when it does, in fact, come to roost, it's going to come to roost in a really abrupt way. Thanks for listening. Be careful out there. Be prepared for the recession. And I will be sharing clips of this presentation to show you how you can be prepared as a small business owner for the recession that's coming.